Game loaded.
Hi, and welcome to an edition of Lessons Learned with your host, Rafael Piñero. E3 2016 is around the corner. Well, it's sort of already started with all the leaks this week, so, But is this going to be a riff on E3 comedy routine kind of video? Not really. That would require me writing a script and reading the script and memorizing the script and actually being, funny. I'm not. Sorry. So what I'm going to be talking about instead is essentially, I'm going to recap stuff that I've said over and over again over the past year and a half, at least on the consumer side of gaming. E3 is the epitome of essentially everything that is wrong, or a lot of what is wrong with video games, at least video game marketing, and video game business models, etc., etc., etc. You see, E3 is supposed to be a show from the business crowd to the business crowd, right? It's executives talking about games and the press covering that. But it hasn't been that in a very long time. Kind of still pretends that it is, sort of, but not really. It doesn't sell games either. It's not an expo where people can actually go and play the games and sort of sell you on the games. Because the bulk of the games that you see in E3 won't come out until anywhere between 6 months to a year and a half, or 2 years. So, again, like I said many times before, any game that is not reached its 6 months mark before release, for all intents and purposes, doesn't exist. And of course, they're not really even selling you games because, as you know, nowadays you don't own games. You don't buy games. You sort of get a ticket to ride on whatever, part of the amusement park, EA or Ubisoft or whatever allows you to go there. So why E3? Well, E3 exists to sell you on the idea of pre-orders. Plural. Like, I pre-order per game. No. See, nowadays, when people pre-order, they pre-order twice. They tend to pre-order the game when they get all hyped about the game when they see it on E3 trailer, right? And they also tend to pre-order the season pass. In other words, they buy the season pass, which is a pre-order for what? DLC. That's right. You get to pre-order a game a year and a half, 2 years in advance, plus a DLC, which tends to comes out after the game release. And then when the game is released, it usually has to, especially if a AAA title, has to have massive patching, plus loaded with microtransactions, etc., etc. Are you seeing the problem here? The part where the hype train collides with the patching culture? These empty promises, because a lot of these supposed in-game trailers are in fact not in-game engine at all. And they're mostly a collection of cinematics, right? So, again, and cutscenes. So they're not really representative of the game at all. And then you have downgrades. Ubisoft is famous for that. Watch Dogs 2 is supposed to be announced. Was already being announced. So we'll hope for that, right? Console parity, which means, of course, most games are designed for the lowest common denominator. Literally, I'm reciting every single title of every video I've made half of the videos I've made in the year and a half I've been talking about consumer aspects of gaming. And E3 is the linchpin of all of that. Let's talk about another title, the cost of video games. Like I said before, because of the massive amount of money spent on shows like E3 and all the advertising therein, you can easily find a title that has their budget doubled and tripled and even quadruple just on ad dollars. Let me explain. Let's say that your video game costs $50 million to make. That is the production cost. The money that went to actually make the game. That's a lot of money, by the way. I'm not downplaying that. But if you do shows like E3 and all the Xbox and all the PAXs and etc., plus all the demos and all the all the things that you do, and you do it earlier and earlier and earlier, you can easily find yourself doubling and even tripling the overall cost of putting that game to market. In other words, most companies nowadays could easily spend another $50, another $100, or even $150, $150 million, that is. If only $150 could actually get you to sell the game, that would be awesome. Thus, again, doubling, $100 million, tripling, $150 million, or quadrupling, $200 million, the total cost, the total budget for that game. And again, once a game is released, it's often released incomplete, chopped to pieces, etc. And also that's one of the reasons why many games nowadays have microtransactions because you spend so much money up front to sell you the idea of the game, to get people to pre-order twice, get them invested in the game. Then once they're invested, you have to keep on milking them for as much money as possible, right? So E3 is a lot of, and a lot of people have said this, and it's very true, a lot of smoke and mirrors to sell you in things that do not exist, will not exist for perhaps a year or more in advance, get you emotionally invested, and through it also financially invested on broken products, broken incomplete products that get chopped into smaller and smaller pieces, and then to get you to spend as much money as possible on it. But that's another thing. That's why the other part of this video is the $60 myth. You don't spend that kind of money anymore on video games. Video games, especially AAA titles, do not cost $60. That's just the bare minimum you pay to get into the game. $60 will give you the core experience. But let's say you also pre-ordered your DLC, again, the Season Pass. How much does a Season Pass cost these days? $5? $10? $25? If for Star Wars Battlefront it costs $50, start adding that up. So if you pre-order the $60 game and you pay $25 for a Season Pass, that's $85. That game no longer costs $60. If you spend $50 for a $60 game, that's $110. If you bought the Gold Premium Platinum Deluxe Edition, du jour, that could easily be as much as $200. If it has microtransactions, especially in multiplayer, you could easily spend a couple more $100 on the game. So that game ended up costing far more than just $60. Oh, and another thing, one final note, because essentially most AAA games are essentially online games. They have different online modes, but they're almost always online. The online clients, etc., etc. And like I said in another video, there is no such thing as an online game, because they're all online, unless they're in indie games or whatever, and meant to be sold to be played offline. Well, all these companies also have a kill switch. EA is infamous for that. Literally has a kill page where they announce every month the games that they stopped supporting. So you spend now well over $100 per game, not $60, and if Australia, probably twice as much. You spend more money in-game to keep playing it. And then if the game is not a huge success, whatever that means, or it's not Call of Duty, the company can easily just press the kill switch 6 months or a year into it and says, well, yeah, we're done. And you're like, but the money, the thing, okay. So yeah, hurrah for E3. Listen, people say, oh, well, you've never been to E3. You're talking out of your ass, whatever. It's like, yeah. If I ever were to go to E3, I would probably laugh my head off from morning to afternoon, and then drink myself to sleep in the evenings, and then rinse and repeat for 2 or 3 days, how long my body could keep up with that train of activity, if you will. I'll do what everybody else does, mock it through Twitter, right? I hope to God that we do get good games, right? But this is another warning for you guys. It's okay to be excited. If you get excited about a game, fine. Ride the wave. But as soon as E3 is over, wave goodbye to the hype train and go back to playing all the wonderful games you already have. And when the game finally comes out and gets reviews and all that, like, okay, I'll give that a second look. That's probably my best advice about buying any video game, and certainly when dealing with E3. It's okay to get excited, but make sure you don't get carried away. As always, if you like this or any video on my channel, please comment and subscribe. And as always, we shall see you when we see you. Good night.